Z100, New York City's number one hit music station. I'm Josh Martinez with my guest. I usually give nicknames. You have too many, dog. So Chris Jericho, what's going on, man?
Give me one. Just give me one nickname.
The Nueve. How about that?
I'll take it.
There
I'll
you
take
go.
it. The Nueve.
I
Sounds
love
good.
it. So final battle tomorrow night, right?
That's right.
Matt Cardona. Mm-hmm. How did that all come about exactly?
Well, once again, kind of a little bit out of my wheelhouse, but Tony Khan, when we started talking about final battle and what to do, being the Ring of Honor world champion, hence the Nueve, 9-time world champion, we're kind of throwing around some names of guys that I could work with, and he mentioned Matt Cardona. I thought that's a great call because nobody would really expect that. Mm-hmm. And I think Tony really liked the vibe of what we did the last time I was the Ring of Honor champion, which is the Ocho, where I just wrestled a bunch of different guys, and there was guys from different companies and guys that came in from Japan and that sort of thing. So I think he kind of liked the idea of shaking things up. And he was impressed with Matt Cardona earlier this year when Matt was there for the work with Adam Copeland. And I just thought that's great because I've never worked with Matt before. And if I have, it was for 2 minutes on Raw and some, dumb single match that didn't mean anything. And that was against Zack Ryder. But Matt Cardona, I've never had a match with before. And so I really liked the idea, and also the fact we were going to be based in New York City for 3 shows, but the better part of a week. Came up with the King of New York idea, and then I thought, well, maybe I just challenge someone from New York. No one would expect Mike Cardona. A little bit of bing, a little bit of bang, and here we are, ready to do this match tomorrow night, which has a great buzz to it because I think we've done a really good job building this match over the last month, and that's what wrestling's all about. So it's very exciting for me.
It's funny because I was talking to a friend earlier, and they were like, didn't he pop up at like a random independent show to attack someone?
I did.
And it was funny because I was like, and this is somebody who doesn't even watch wrestling, but I guess it popped up on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. And I was like, yeah, and they were like, yeah, what's that about? And then I kind of told them about Final Battle and stuff. Whose idea was it for you to pop up on that GCW show?
So we were looking at Matt's dates to see what he had, because I really wanted to do something on an independent show because he's the king of the indies, and you want to create the buzz for this, like I said. And there's so much attention going on for the Continental Classic that I wanted to do something that gets a little bit of an extra focus on it. So I was looking at his dates, independent dates, and he was in Los Angeles at the GCW show, and I just happened to have a gig the night at the Whiskey with my non-makeup Kiss cover band Quarantine the same night. And I was like, well, where is it? Maybe it was literally 20 minutes down the road.
Oh. Which is probably, a 20-minute walk, 20-minute drive if it's L.A.
I mean, really, right? But the thing is, it's like when you have something like that happen with that bunch of serendipity, it's fate. We have to do this. And that's the basic reason. And, of course, everyone always thinks, hey, what's the real, is there going to be is this a olive branch to GCW? Is it going to create it? No, I just happen to be literally in the same city on the same date with this idea of wanting to attack him. So we worked it out. Quarantine went on later. Matt went on earlier. And we put this together. And once again, people are talking about it that probably wouldn't be talking about the match if I didn't do that because it's outside the norm. And once again, that's how you create a buzz.
So Hammerstein, I call it Hammerstein. Some people say Hammerstein. We just had a concert there Friday night, and I kind of thought about it. I'm like, this is such a fun setup.
Yeah.
And I remember
it's pronounced Hammerstein, by the way.
Like Ram?
Yeah, that's the way I pronounce it. So
you've worked in that building before. How is that, aside from the size of the venue, how unique is it compared to other New York City venues?
See, well, here's the thing, though. I've worked there officially, but I don't remember much about it. I know the match was ECW One Night Stand, but I don't remember anything. I remember the match, but the vibe of the venue, and I really can't recall. So in a lot of ways, it's my first time being there, and obviously it's such a historic venue. And I will say, I've worked in so many venues in New York. From, obviously Madison Square Garden to the Barclays Center to the Arthur Ashe Stadium to the Lost Battalion Hall in Queens with ECW. So I will say this, venue always matters, but the New York crowd is amazing. And I know it's going to be that way at the Hammerstein Ballroom tomorrow night and on Saturday and Sunday for Collision and Dynamite. And I really like the idea of doing 3 shows there in a row, a little bit of a kind of a small residency. I've just been saying earlier today, it gave me a real chance to spend some time in New York City. Like, I used to be here so many times during the year because we used to run the Garden 6 times a year in WWE. With AEW, it's once a year or twice with the different arenas. But you come in, you do the show, you leave. Here, I've been here since Tuesday. We filmed all night for the King of New York vignette that we showed on Dynamite. Was here yesterday doing some more work. We're doing the media day today, and then 3 shows in a row. It gave me a chance to really enjoy New York City for a little bit of time, especially around this time of year. It is the best time of year to be in New York. So the whole experience has just been amazing. So I'm really looking forward to kind of getting down to it and having the actual shows. But everything else so far has just been a blast. So I'm excited to kind of really experience the Hammerstein Ballroom the way that it should be, of respecting it as a very classic, legendary venue. I didn't see it that way the first time I was there.
And it's loud. It's loud.
Right. It's a ballroom. I do remember that, and I think it's one of those things where you go to these places when you have a sold out crowd, which we'll have 3 nights in a row. They're on top of you. They're hanging from the rafters. And they're New Yorkers. You know that you're going to get a little bit of craziness. And that's why I wanted to do the King of New York, where if you're watching it, of course I'm making, I took, the Staten Island ferry to the meatpacking district. So you can't take the Staten Island ferry to the meatpacking district. You're the worst King of New York ever. That's the idea. That's why I'm doing this. So that there will be people there who are angry at me. And I say, once again, they're angry at me for all these things I'm saying. Like, for example, like Juan Soto, he's still in New York. What's the big deal? Don't worry about it. Mets, Yankees, what's the difference? I will kill you, people have been saying. So that's kind of the fun of this, knowing how to, we're doing a real localized promotion for this match because it's based in New York City, so why not do that?
And I think that, and let me know if I'm wrong, by the way, you're obviously the professional. I'm not. I feel like nowadays everything is so centrally focused on, okay, it's on TV, so it's got to be national.
Yeah.
So for you to kind of hone in on, okay, it's New York City, even though this is a global pay-per-view event, right? Was that kind of your idea? Was there a conglomeration of everybody's kind of thoughts?
It was actually Tony Khan who had the idea, like, you should be the King of New York because you actually are from New York, born in New York. And then I was like, I love it. Like, once again, you take the ideas from your boss and you make it great. And I liked the concept of that and jumped right into it. I went right to Amazon and bought like I Heart New York shirt and New York baseball and Yankee stuff. And it's like, I love the fact we did this King of New York vignette the other night, like I said, where I went around to all the places where a true New Yorker would never go. Yeah. Rockefeller Center, skating on the ice, Radio City Music Hall, the janky pizza places in Times Square or whatever it may be. But I'm also wearing this cheesy hoodie that just says New York baseball. I just love that. It's not even not even the Yankees or the Mets, either one. It's just New York baseball. To me, that's like, no true New York baseball fan would buy a shirt that just says New York baseball on it, right? It's like being a, Iron Maiden fan and buying a British metal shirt and thinking, hey, I'm at the Maiden show with a British metal shirt. Doesn't that count? I really like that idea. And so just jump right in with it with both feet. And like you said, we're making it very localized. Because that's going to translate, and it's not like we're localizing, Lafayette, Louisiana or something. It's New York City. Everyone knows what this is. They know what we're doing here. And I think it's just going to translate to more energy and more electricity at the actual gigs themselves.
Do you have any personal memories of New York City that immediately when you see a certain block or you hear a certain neighborhood or something, you immediately get pulled back to a story?
Well, I mean, my dad played for the New York Rangers, so I was born in Manhasset on Long Island. So I legitimately remember being at the Garden at probably 3 or 4 years old, thinking it was so loud. I remember my grandma had knit me a sweater, and I was holding it over my ears because it was so loud. That really bothered me. And I also remember being mad at my dad because he wouldn't wave at me when he was skating down the ice like on a breakaway or something, So I do have a connection to the Garden. There was a show that we did. I mean, gosh, I've headlined the Garden 20 times, but one of those shows versus John Cena in 2008, cage match show at Christmas. It was a cage match. It did the highest gross at MSG ever for WWE at that point in time. I'm sure it's been beaten since, but so to go from kind of growing up in the Garden as a little kid to headlining the biggest WWE show in history at the Garden, money-wise, was a pretty cool moment for me. So I have a lot of those types of memories of New York, and just spending so much time here. Like I said, the 2000s, especially working in the WWE, we were here every second month. So every 2 months you'd be in here, staying downtown, staying in Times Square, going around, doing all the press and all the stuff. But yeah, I played hockey at the Garden. Christopher Reeve had the Super Skate show 4 years in a row.
How crazy was that?
It was crazy.
Like, just as a hockey fan, your dad
it was insane.
Worked in that building, if you will. Like,
it was insane, and that was the fun part of it, because it was celebrities versus the Rangers. So I got to play against Messier, and I scored a goal, and Kirk McLean, who was the goaltender at the time, a real goal, not like a. I took this horrible slap shot where the puck was kind of flipping like a bat, and it went right over his shoulder. Like, that's real, man. I scored a goal in the Garden for real.
Horn go off?
What's that? Yeah, the whole thing. And I would have a fight every year because it's a show business thing. So I fought David Boreanaz, the actor. I fought Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers. We're still best friends to this day. And the last time I played, I said, I'll play again, but my dad has to be invited, and we have to be on opposite teams. And I fought my dad in the Garden, which was great. And he punched me hard. He gave me a little mouse on my... And he also scored a goal. He, like, you know, these NHL guys, I don't care if they're 70 or whatever he was at the time, they're still better than everybody, because it's hard to make it to the NHL. And I remember Glenn Anderson was on the range at the time. He said, go stand in front of the net and keep your stick on the ice. As long as you can do that. And I could stand in front of the net, like Boomer Esiason trying to push me out of the way. Like, he can't move me. I scored like 4 goals. He would just shoot the puck off my stick.
The deflection.
In deflection. Like, these guys are just masterminds at what they do. So that was a really cool moment, getting a chance to do that. Like you said, as a hockey fan, Madison Square Garden meaning so much. And so there's been a lot of those types of memories. I always loved New York, but I took it for granted over the last few years. Because like I said, you come in, you do the show, you leave. It's more about, oh my gosh, it's going to take such a long time to get to the airport, to the venue. Being here and getting a chance to just relax and enjoy the vibe, it's such a great city.
From a stopping and smelling the roses standpoint, that's my biggest issue in life.
Sure.
How often do you catch yourself not doing that enough?
I actually do it more than you might expect. Okay. I do enjoy things, and that's why I'm still in the business and still in wrestling, because I enjoy, you know, these moments. And like you said, some people don't do that, and I've been very fortunate to not be that guy. Because even when you get caught up in the steam of travel gig, and it could be for music, or if it could be for, you know, whatever, one of my cruises or one of my podcasts or whatever, you have to realize that this is pretty cool stuff that we're doing here. You know, like, I like doing media days, and you get the schedule, and it's a long day, 6:45 in the lobby, and we're going here, and here. And this is my kind of the last interview for the day, and I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I'm good. But I enjoy it, and it's fun, and it's not something I ever was like, oh my gosh, now I have to go promote the show that I'm on. Never felt that way. I'm on a show, I've released a record or doing a podcast or being in a movie or whatever. I want people to know about it. I'm proud of it. So you have to do that side of it as well. So yeah, I really do take some time, as much as I can, to really enjoy what's been going on.
When was the last time you made yourself smile? Like, legitimate, doing something for you that you were like, I'm happy, I'm just going to do this little thing and I'm going to be happy doing it, and I don't care what anyone else thinks.
I mean, that's all relative, you know what I mean? Like, when I'm at home, you know, having a kickboxing session or having your dog lick your face or whatever. But I mean, even just the other night when I was skating at Rockefeller Center with the Ring of Honor title over my shoulder, and some people know him, some people have no idea, who's this idiot, like, skating around with was it a boxing belt, a wrestling belt, a championship belt? I was getting a kick out of myself. I just thought, this is so freaking preposterous. I love it, you know. And you play it straight. You're not like, hey, like, I just love kind of just these dumb things that we get to do for a living. You know, we paid the tourist, you know, they got the double-decker buses, and he was just sitting there. And it was $40 for the ride, and I only had $29. I'm like, does anyone got any cash? And like, if people only knew this, we got $29 to give to the driver to drive us 2 blocks down Times Square, and we're getting a great shot. It's just me. I'm standing on top of the wind's in my hair. I got the titles up there, and this freaking traffic light comes, And I'm like, I would like to know how many people have lost an eye, been decapitated, got knocked out from not paying attention. It's like an Indiana Jones movie. You go through the tunnel, you better duck. Just stuff like that. Like I was laughing, like if people only knew the stuff that we do to entertain them. And that I like that sort of thing.
Now, from a more business standpoint, starting January 1st, AEW will be simulcasted on Max. How big of a deal is that for you guys?
I mean, it's massive. It's never been done before. The first time ever in wrestling that the weekly program twice a week will be simulcast on Max and on TNT for Collision and TBS for Dynamite. And I mean, it just shows the growth of AEW, and it's just been over 5 years. That to me just blows my mind. I think of any other corporation to get to that level in 5 years. I mean, you got to talk about Beatlemania or something like that. I guarantee Coca-Cola wasn't doing what we're doing after 5 years, or WWE or any of those types of companies. So it's a big deal, and kind of be the trailblazer in being the first to simulcast both of our weekly shows on Max, which is such a huge streaming platform. It just continues to show the growth of this company. It's very, very quickly as well, which is very exciting.
So I spoke to Tony about this at Full Gear during the presser, the post pay-per-view scrum. You guys are taking a more unique approach to venues in 2025 for TV. How exciting is that to try new things out?
Yeah, it really is, man. And I think the worst thing you could ever do is to kind of in any business, overprice yourself or overextend yourself. And we're at a place where to go to some of the middle-sized venues, not in every city, but in some of them, it's a very smart move for many reasons, but most importantly, just the vibe of the fans, and you want to put 10,000 people into an arena, and if you can, you do. If you're down to 5,000, but you go to a 4,000 seat arena, it increases demand, and it just makes the show that much more exciting, and it translates so much better on TV. So I think right now, with all of the different choices that people have to buy tickets to go to shows, I think we're smart to moving in some of these, like you mentioned, different size venues, because it just makes it cooler. And we have always had the cool factor in AEW, especially when we started. And then going into the pandemic, coming out of the pandemic. And I think one way is the supply and demand. And if you have, this many tickets for sale and they're gone, it just makes the product hotter that, you can just continue to grow.
So we talked about New York a lot. I'm also on air in Chicago.
Chicago, another great wrestling city.
Which I gotta say, and I hate to admit this, but Allstate Arena is the loudest venue I have ever been inside of. They have the wooden planks up top. Any fond memories in Chicago?
I mean, that's where I made my WWE debut. Was
August 9th?
Yeah, 1999. There you go.
Still, by the way, greatest debut, greatest introduction of all time.
Thank you.
Greatest.
A lot of people say that. We built that up so well, and it was such a genius to have the countdown clock, which we ran for 4 weeks prior to expire, to hit zero right in the middle of the Rock's promo. I mean, what a way to debut someone, like you said. But that was in Allstate, and we've been to Allstate many times afterwards. It's one of those things, every time we go to Chicago, anywhere, it's always loud. But Allstate holds some special memories for me. And it's been such a long time since I actually wrestled. I was there a couple of years ago to see the Scorpions, which was amazing. Here I am, in Allstate Arena, now seeing a show, because I've never seen a show at the Allstate. I've only done shows there. So to actually go and check it out was actually very cool. It's like when I went and saw the Ranger game years ago when AEW first started at Madison Square Garden. I don't think I'd ever sat in Madison Square Garden since I was a kid to actually see a game.
Yeah.
I think I went to Metallica there maybe in 2009, but it's very rare that you get to go to some of these arenas that you're used to performing in and actually enjoy the show. So, but yeah, Allstate is some of the greatest memories I have. Also, some of the hardest memories. I remember one time we had a pay-per-view there, and I was super hungover. And I had to have, it was called a Duchess of Queensberry match. Sue Aitchison was the queen, or Sue was one of the old school employees with WWE. It was against William Regal. It was just kind of just ridiculous match where they changed the rules as you go.
I actually remember this.
Well, if you watch it again, you'll see a highly hungover Chris Jericho trying to figure his way out through that match in the Allstate Arena.
Was that partying in Chicago the night before?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Switching gears a little bit, I kind of want to get into your head. You're a huge music fan.
Yes.
You're big time into rock. You have the band. But is there anyone that you've recently been introduced to through your kids' music, let's say playing them, that you're like, oh, this is not exactly something I would have sought out, but I'm a huge fan of this one?
Well, we were just talking earlier about Shabuzi. And once again, the name is so fun to say. And I was like, who is this guy? And I saw him, as I was telling you, at a halftime for a football game. And I was really impressed by him. And I love guys who, it's like Jelly Roll. You see him and it's not what you're expecting. I like that. So those are a couple. But for rock bands, I think the Struts. If you like rock and roll and you haven't heard the Struts, you need to check them out because they are kind of a cross between Queen and Bowie and the Black Crowes and kind of all that's cool about that era of music and the sound of that. And there's a lot of great new rock and roll bands coming up that have that vibe. But right now, I mean, country is the new rock and roll.
Dude, the country has exploded. I mean, we here at the biggest pop station on the planet, there's several different country songs and artists that we have played heavily.
Right.
And like, listen, I'll be the first to admit, I'm born in the hood, grew up on hip hop and Spanish music. I don't get it necessarily a lot of times. I don't, but I did radio in Iowa, and that was eye-opening. I realized what muddin' was, and which was, I'll never do that again. But, exploring kind of the country that way, literally, like United States, was really eye-opening. Is any cities that you went to that opened your eyes throughout your whole career where you were like, I didn't realize Spokane, Washington could be a lot of fun?
Once again, to me, it's never where you go, it's who you're with. You make your own fun. But that's one of the great things about doing what I do is you get to travel across the whole country, across the whole world, and just see these amazing cities like a San Antonio or an Austin or, you're just mentioning stuff like, like Green Bay, Wisconsin. Never would expect it. I always had so much fun in Green Bay. Great times like in Peoria, Illinois. Like just thinking of throw a city at me, I've probably had a blast there. San Diego, beautiful city. But yeah, you mentioned, South Dakota had great times there. And not only just from AEW and WWE, but from Fozzy as well. We've toured every state, and like you said, you show up in a Boise, Idaho, and you're like, "What's going on here?" And you find out, "Oh wow, there's lots going on here." It's a great place to go.
Was San Diego where you won the undisputed title for the?
It is, man. Geez, you're on a roll. You should go on Jericho Jeopardy. We should start that.
By the way, 11 years. Talk is Jericho.
Yeah,
dude.
Yeah, crazy,
congratulations.
Right? Thanks, man. Yeah, over 1,000 episodes.
Wow.
And I remember starting it December of 2013. So, yeah, we just hit 11 years a couple weeks ago.
A pioneer in the wrestling podcast game. Let me say this.
Thank you.
There's a few people, you included, Stone Cold's up there. I don't think you guys are getting the love that you truly deserve from just a straight podcasting hosting lane, the way that you guys were putting out podcasts, and obviously in your case still doing it, and I will give you your podcasting flowers.
Thank you.
I feel like everyone and their mother, me included, has a podcast now that people don't realize that you've been doing it since 11 years.
There's literally over 1 million podcasts, and you've seen how the business has changed over the years. But when I started, not even just wrestling podcasts in general, I remember I went to the Adam Carolla show to do a podcast. And I remember asking my publicist at the time, why are you sending me to do a podcast? Because I literally thought a podcast was like a college kid thing that you just do in your dorm or like put it up on your website. Like, who's listening to this? And I went into his studio and he had a plaque up on the wall. This is back in 2012 or so. Guinness World Record podcast downloads. And at the time it was like 500 million. And I was like, what? 500 million downloads for a podcast? What is this? And then Steve was doing one at the time, and they were looking for another wrestling guy. And I remember telling my boss at the time, was Westwood One, was the radio network. I said, I can't just do a wrestling podcast. Well, what else are you going to do? I'm like, paranormal and music and porn stars and comedy and strong, like whatever, you name it. If I'm interested in it, I'll do it. And that's kind of, I've always had that mindset for Talk is Jericho. So I've always kind of done it. It's not just this or just that. It's all things that I'm interested in or if it sounds interesting to me, And that's kind of what I built the show around, is just there's no rules as to what's going to come out. And you never know. Every week, it's twice a week. And if you go through the topics, you're like, wow, really? You've had this person on, you've had that person on or whatever. And to me, that's half the fun. Like I could have Vanilla Ice or I could have You know, I could have, Steve Austin, or I could have, whatever. I mean, I had Larry the Cable Guy on a couple weeks ago, and
Lashley was a really good one.
Lashley, Elizabeth Hurley, the True Crime, Ghost Hunters, Bigfoot Hunt, whatever it is, I'll have them on there, and that's, as you know, it's not easy to do an interview, and people think that it is. I don't do interviews. I just have conversations, and that's the secret.
And I think that's something that everyone should keep in mind. Like, it's good to have like a set of questions set up, but don't rely on the questions.
Yeah, I mean, questions set up if you really need some backup, if you have somebody, because, you got to get 45 minutes or an hour. But sometimes you don't even need them. And I found from doing so many interviews, when someone has a list of questions, they're more paying attention to what their next question is rather than where you are in the moment. I actually learned that from...
I was going to say that one more time. That is the number one rule I tell people about interviewing.
Yeah.
That right there.
Yeah.
Because I tell people all the time, if I'm talking to you and I ask you question 5, naturally as you're answering, I do one of these. Now I'm looking for question 6. Where was I? Completely ignoring you in theory.
Yeah.
Where you could give me a huge nugget of info
Yeah.
that could change the course of the interview if I just asked the follow-up.
Yeah.
But because I ignored you to find 6 on this map, it's all screwed up. That is the number one interview advice I give.
I had William Shatner on 3 times, and it's great because he always says, I don't do podcasts, only my boy Chris Jericho. And I remember we were talking about something, and somehow I pulled out my keys at the time, which were Avis rental car. And he was like, oh, where'd you rent your car? Avis. And we just went off on this whole conversation about rental cars, which was great, but it's like wasn't on my docket to talk to William Shatner about rent-a-cars. But I really learned, this is great stuff because he's paying attention to what I'm saying. Now I'm paying attention to him saying, if we go to a bar and you meet a girl or a guy or whatever it may be, you don't take out a list of questions and start talking to them. You just talk, and wherever it goes, it goes. And I really, really learned that from Bill. Call me Bill Shatner. In that these list of questions that you may or may not have, first of all, I know what it's like to get asked the same things. He doesn't want to talk about Captain Kirk. If it gets there organically, we get there. Same thing with anybody you talk to. There's a certain list of things that I know right away. Oh my gosh, how'd you get into wrestling? It's like, really? I've written 5 books on it. Lemmy had the great answer. So Lemmy, how'd you start motoring? He's like, look up in a magazine. What else you got? And it's like, you're right. Like, this is a good chance just to talk, man. And wherever it goes, it goes. And that's the beauty of a great interviewer and being a great interviewee, I guess.
Before we wrap things up, you're closer to the end of your career than you are to the beginning. Have you thought about yet how you want to close it out?
I really haven't, man, because it could end tomorrow. I mean, Sting quit at 65. The times have changed now in wrestling because there's so much money involved from a television standpoint, and it's still a very star power driven business. It always has been. So you could stay in this job a lot longer than you ever thought you would, as long as you're healthy and still can perform. So I don't know. And I haven't really thought about that. I've never been the guy who's like year-long retirement ceremony. That seems a little bit kind of like, But having said that, going back to rock and roll, huge Iron Maiden fan, and they announced in the morning that Nico McBrain, their drummer from 42 years, was retiring that night. And then the next day announced the new drummer. You had no time. It was like morning, Nico's retiring, last show tonight, tomorrow new drummer. Like, what? So there might be some merit to doing a final show, but I don't think about that stuff. I really live in what's going on right now. My Sid Vicious, Sex Pistols attitude is like, I'll just disappear and no one will ever see me again. But I don't know if I'd be able to do that. So I'm sure when the time is right, I'll know it and we'll figure out a way to do it and then go from there, But when I retire, I'm retiring. I don't want to do the one where you come back. So I might never.
Oh, so you want to stick to this is the match and then I'm done after this. You're not trying to.
Yes. So why put that on yourself? I mean, I mentioned the Scorpions. They had a retirement tour 10 years ago, and when it was done, they went, we don't want to retire anymore.
Cher's had like 30.
Yeah, Kiss did it. Ozzy did it. So it's like, why? Who's never done that? The Stones. Stones are in their 80s. They've never had a retirement tour, and when they're ready to be done, I'm sure they'll be done. But to me, it's like, why put that pressure on yourself to say that? So to me, maybe I'll just stop wrestling, and maybe 5 years from now, I might want to have another match. Maybe not, but it seems like there's a lot of pressure on it. And what happens if you have your retirement match and it sucks? I mean, well, then you'd be like, well, then I have to have another one now.
Yeah.
What I mean?
I think over the last, let's say, decade or so, and we'll wrap this up, but over the last decade or so, there's been a lot of buzz and a lot of money involved in those retirement matches.
Sure, there has, yeah.
So I mean, that's got to be, just from the Chris Jericho business sense, that's got to be tempting as hell, dude.
It is, but I've never done anything for money. Honestly, never have. Okay. When I was 19, I was wrestling not for money because there was no money to be made. I was putting 55 cents in gas in my car because that's all I had. So if you do stuff that you love, the money always follows. If you do something for money, it usually never works out the way that you want it to. So to me, I'll know when it's time, and then we'll just go from there. But for right now, I'm still enjoying this at the highest of levels that you could enjoy something. And people go, do you still enjoy it? If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it. There's no way I would do it at this point in time.
And you know what? You got an event tomorrow, Final Battle, Ring of Honor, Hammerstein Ballroom, Hammerstein. It's the Manhattan Center. Chris Jericho, appreciate you stopping by, man.
Man, always a pleasure. Thank you.